Hello. So, I have been wanting to talk to you all about the great goddess, the goddess, for a few days now. But I've found it difficult because while I've had all this sudden rush of creative energy come into my life this week and help me to build up this idea that is becoming Maitri wisdom, I have found the goddess to be quite elusive in terms of speaking about herself. Um, and I do wonder if it is because she approaches life from the perspective of the observer. When I first began this phase of my spiritual evolution, um, which I would mark as when I first had my spiritual awakening, because while I've always been someone who believed in a higher power and I was raised within Christianity and I've always had a relationship with the concept of my ancestors and all of that, I have never been like this up until 4 years ago now when I had an awakening. And during the beginning of my spiritual journey, I was quite obsessed with the concept of nothingness, and I really loved to think about and dissect darkness and darkness's position within spirituality in the modern age and within the new age spiritual movement and the way darkness was characterized. I had a big beef with the way that darkness was spoken about in the earlier days. These days, not so much. There's been like a shift over the past year and a half. But before that, when I was in the beginning of my spiritual journey, most people were still referring to darkness in a way that was derogatory, in my opinion, and in a way where, darkness reflected shame and guilt and the bad, and it was all about approaching light, and it was all about ascension. Anything that was related to low, related to less, related to scarcity, related to darkness was seen as something to avoid, something to move beyond, and that includes the shadow. And that whole way of thinking did not make sense to me and troubled me from several aspects. One, I think, just from an aspect of being a Black woman and having darkness have such a connotation, I couldn't help but question it and critique it. I think that there's a lot of race politics you could throw into that conversation when it comes to the spiritual movements and why darkness is characterized as it is. I do not think that if we lived in a world that had not been affected by white supremacy, that we would have the same connotations with darkness and lightness. And I do not even think that we would live in such a binary as we do within the spiritual world and within the language that we have, especially when it comes to English, because English is affected by white supremacy, of course. And so those are things that I thought a lot about in the beginning of my spiritual journey, but especially about this idea of nothingness. And when I thought of nothingness, I really thought about nothing, and nothingness as the first being, the first expression, the first existence. And I thought of nothingness as a reflection of the goddess, as well as darkness. And it was always so interesting to me to examine what it must have been like to go from the process of being nothing to creating, and the different psychological aspects of what that would do to your own sense of self. If from out of nothing you begin to create all of these different forms of expression and life, and you begin to create existence itself. And I wonder, especially with the idea that energy never dies and that we are always expanding and that we should always be ascending, I felt like there was a conversation to be had either around our projection onto the goddess of this need to always be fulfilling this role of production and producing new life, producing new energy, expanding, creating, or whether the goddess herself is dealing with her own complex of being a creator and of prioritizing light and expansion and growth and life over her root existence, which seemed to be more closely related to death, darkness, nothingness. I wondered about that a lot during the beginning of my spiritual journey, and on my old YouTube channel, you can see my thinking about that all the time. It was something I was really passionate about, and growing up, I would say that I did not have a clear, direct relationship with the goddess and with goddess energy, not in a way that I would be able to pinpoint, not in a way where I would ever use the word goddess. I had a relationship with God, and that was because of Christianity, because my family is Christian and I was raised within Christianity and Catholicism because I went to Catholic school. But I did not really ever connect to, and I don't even remember really thinking about the concept of goddess, of what goddess means, of who goddess is. As I became older and I began to be introduced to conversations around feminism and I thought more about my position as a woman, of course, certain questions entered my mind, certain ideas. But really, I would say that my relationship with the goddess began pretty late into my teens, and maybe not even my teens, but maybe my early adulthood. And I wonder why, because I grew up also being quite connected to what would be, I guess, stereotypically considered like my center as a woman. I was always someone who wanted to be a mother, and I've always been someone who has been fascinated and really excited for the process of pregnancy and birth and raising children. I've always been really excited about my role as a partner to somebody else and my role within the home. So I've had these like stereotypical traditional connections to femininity or womanhood that I would think would trigger some type of response or conversation with the goddess. But it never did growing up. And I think that that could be for many reasons. One, I think that more often than not, what I am finding is that the goddess is elusive and quiet and still and sleeping a lot of the time. It doesn't seem like she needs to be acknowledged, nor does it seem like she has a desire to wake up and be welcomed by the world, be welcomed by creatures of faith, and have some type of role in their evolution. I think the goddess is quite secure in the role that she plays, and I find her presence to be very, very quiet, even quieter than God, which I didn't know was possible because I feel like God can be quite quiet, but God has moments where I feel like they're quite loud. But I have not found that to be true with the goddess. I find her very hard to pin down within my dreams, within my own mind. And while I see her more and more in my life, it requires deep work and evolution to get to the point where I feel like she is really speaking to me. And so, yeah, the fact that there's this aspect of this channel where I want to talk about her, and yet I find it so difficult to discover information about her and discover her and locate her. It makes me wonder why this journey is beginning right now. I feel really restless, and I have, for the past few days, have really been wanting to figure out what I want to say for this first conversation in regards to her, but I am not receiving a whole lot of information. And well, I've gotten little insights and little tips and little structuring advice on how this can all go. For the most part, it feels like she is asleep and would like me to sleep. But I don't want to sleep, and I don't want to wait on her to be ready. And the more that I am sitting here with my own restlessness and impatience, I think about all the ways that I am a reflection of her, and I wonder where she exists in the world and how she exists in our lives as that restless energy, and as the impatient energy, and as the energy that does not want to wait on her own evolution and her own preparedness to speak and be heard and be discovered. And I wish I could find those parts of her, those pieces of her, but I feel that they must be running and at a pace that I can't even keep up with. And all of the parts of her that are slow and available are sleeping, are resting. And it's such an interesting state to be in. And the first conversation I wanted to have about her was about stillness. Well, there were many, but stillness was the one that seemed like maybe it was the most accessible and the one I could actually get done. But even in trying to have that conversation, I've written down so many small little notes here and there, trying to get a conversation running in my mind and a thought created. But really, all of these are my own thoughts. I would not say that this is a reflection of something I'm receiving about the goddess. It's really just a process of trying to understand her, and discover her and connect with her, because I want to connect, because I want to be connected. But finding that tether and holding on to it is very difficult. It's very difficult. And that's frustrating. But that's life, isn't it? And I feel like I have a mother that really reflects the goddess, because my mom is the type of woman who you want to be interested in you and talking to you and connected to you, but she is, complete in herself in a way, in a sense where, just because she's had children, just because she is a mother, does not mean her life stops at her children. And even though I would love for her to be thinking about me all the time, and not actually, but just when I'm feeling needy and like a child who needs their mom, I cannot expect that out of her. She has her own life, and she is constantly moving, constantly running, and is usually the one to get off the phone while I am trying to hold on. And it feels like that relationship with my mom is a reflection of a relationship that I also have with the goddess, where I am constantly trying to pin her down and ask for her time. And she, while clearly loving me and always directing me, always guiding me, always helping me, always being there for me and supporting me, is also very plain and honest about the fact that, life doesn't work that way. And she can't always be at my beck and call, especially now that I'm not a child. And it makes me long for the times when I was a child that maybe I didn't recognize the way that the goddess was there. And now I can't go back to those moments. My memory isn't that strong to take me back to the specific moments where she would show up. But I feel like I miss her really deeply. And I just wish for a stronger connection, or just more time, I guess. And clearer vision to be able to find her even when she's being thin and elusive. And I don't know why. It makes me emotional. Like, I feel like I could cry if I sat and thought about it for a long time, because it's a beautiful thing to feel so deeply for someone, for something, for some energy, for some spirit, and to desire their presence so much. There's not really many people and many things whose presence I desire. I'm quite a loner, and I'm quite happy on my own, but I would give anything to be with the goddess and to dance with her and to feel her spirit. And I will say that when I am dancing, I really have felt many different goddesses in my soul, in my body, and it's always been so wonderful. I would say like some of the goddesses that I tend to connect to the most when I'm dancing are the goddess Kali and the goddess Pele. Um, but yeah, I sometimes I wish I could do whatever kind of magical past life regression or regression work and inner child work to go back to the moments where the goddess was there strongly in my life as a child. And I feel like it would be the same as going back to the moments with my mom, in the moments when I needed her most and I was most vulnerable. Like, I have this one memory that I don't know if it's actually true, because when I bring it up to my mom, she's like, "What are you talking about?" And my sister doesn't even like to hear it. Um, but I have this memory of I had a lot of struggles with my health as a kid, and there was this one time when I was being hospitalized for asthma, which it was always for asthma. Um, and I think it was pretty bad. And I have a memory of my mom being like, "If you need to let go, you can," which she obviously, I mean, I completely understand why she would be like, I would never say that. And my sister hates it when I tell her that, but I swear it happened. Um, and if it wasn't her, then now I wonder if maybe that was the goddess. And I wonder what it takes to be able to say that to something that you've created, because it's so hard for me to let go of things that I've been able to bring out of my mind into the world. And I can't imagine what it's like for the goddess, but I also wonder if maybe that's why she's so removed and reserved, because she's in this position of constantly facing death and loss and grief of her creations and of her children. And if those are, I mean, I feel like the way that people say that, God is in everything, you are God, I feel like there's a separation for the goddess. While I do feel that the goddess is in everything and we are reflections of the goddess, I feel like the great goddess is a separate entity. And I feel like when her creations and her children die, it is a separate death from herself. And I feel like that is a difficult existence, for it to not be that it is just a part of you, moving on, that it is something that is truly autonomous and independent from you, and that you have built your own distinct relationship with and have created and birthed into the world and then allowed to become its own. For that to constantly be in the process of ending and not being able to recreate those unique expressions, I would understand why there is a level of detachment from the goddess to the rest of the world in a way that God does not need to do, because it's not the same process or the same experience. So that does make sense to me. But it doesn't make it any easier to be the child and to want her around more, or just to know her more. And I wonder maybe if that's why I'm even doing this whole thing, because this all started with wanting to create something for my children and wanting to speak to them, to offer advice, information, but also I think to make sure that they could know who I was, at the different phases of my life before I met them, before they came into existence. And maybe it's out of my own longing to know what my parents were like, to know who they were, because there's so much information. There's so much to know. I've always been a very curious person. But I really do want to know the goddess in a way that isn't just the goddess, in a way that's more intimate. And I think that process can probably be achieved by getting to know myself more and by allowing myself to have experiences, and to allow myself to dream and have those dreams be achieved. I do think that is a way to understand her more and to care for the earth and to care for others and to connect with all of her other creations. That is a way to understand her more. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't just want to be able to lie in her arms and know her in that way, in the direct way, where she really is my mother, in a way that I can contact her and be with her and have her around in a way that feels tangible, in a way that the spiritual doesn't provide. Because that's not their realm, which I understand, but I guess there are certain things that I just wish could be. And many times I just wish she could be here, really, really here, because I feel like I need her and I want her, and I feel like there was a time on earth when she was here, when she was around, and I want to know what it would take to create that space again so that she could come back, because I feel like we all need her. I feel like the whole planet needs her, the whole world, the whole universe needs her. And I wonder where she's gone and why. And what can be done, what has been done, what can be reversed, what can be healed and fixed. And I do think part of it is taking care of the earth and apologizing for the way that we've become so disruptive and ungrateful on this planet. So we all have our role to play within that process. But it's hard coming down here and not having her around. I think I really crave her presence, especially in moments where life is starting over again, and the beginning is always so difficult. The beginning of any new experience is always so difficult, and I don't know if it triggers some deep memory in my mind of birth, but I imagine she must have been there at my very first moments breathing on this planet, and I feel that she watches over me from a position that I can't see. I feel like she's never in front, she's always behind. And part of me thinks it's because she's doing the clearing work, that she is the type of mother who clears and heals and works very heavily with the past. And it's such a important role and position to be in. And I hate to think that we made it so that she needed to go behind us instead of being beside us or in front of us or above us. But when I think about her right now, I see her as, you know, every time, with every step forward that we take, she is behind us, clearing and discussing and working with the past. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I have like a little mirror here, and I'm looking into it sometimes, and I feel like I'm getting a sense of where she is. And I feel like it is the observer position, but it's also, I just get this feeling like she is behind us. And I don't know how behind. And I don't know if she's behind us and her back is to us, or if her back is to the past and she's following us, but it feels like she's doing work right now with the past. And it's funny because when I was shuffling my goddess deck, the past is the first thing that came out, and I was surprised because I was asking what she wanted to talk about in relation to the goddess, and the past was the first thing that came out, and immediately my thoughts went to like not working with the past, understanding who she's been, like the different ancient archetypes of the goddess and the way she's showed up throughout history. That's where my mind went first. But now I feel like in this process of trying to find her, I feel like this mirror is giving me a glimpse. And it's funny because when I was thinking about stillness, I was thinking about how does the goddess show up in the world around us when it comes to stillness. And I thought about physical things, because physical things move so slow, that they're still, like walls, like anything physical, so still it's able to be morphed into an object, into something that can be held and touched, even our bodies. And I was thinking about the body as well. And I was thinking that stillness isn't actually stillness, but just, another form of movement, a dance that's at a slower pace. But looking in this mirror, which you could imagine as a reflection, an expression of her, and seeing only the back of me, it made me think about where she is right now, and think about her in the position of doing clearing work. It feels like the goddess could be right now, and I don't know how long she's been doing this for, how long she'll do this for, and I don't know if it's just for me or if it's for all of us, for the whole world. But it feels like she is clearing the past right now and working with the past and healing the past, understanding the past, talking to the past, helping the past. Helping the past is really what it feels like she's doing. And it's such a beautiful thought because, someone has to care for the past, we're such a future-oriented species, because we have to be. And most creatures on this planet are future-oriented for their survival. And if I'm thinking about the past as their own expression of life, their own entity, and the past being her own child, the past being a child of the goddess in the same way everything else is. I mean, who needs more love and care and protection and presence right now, presence of the goddess right now, than the past? I mean, the past has been through so much. Our pasts are so heavy and difficult, and for so many of us it's so hard to process the past, and with a lack of spaces on this planet where we can really understand what we have been through, not just within our lifetime, but within the lifetimes that our soul has lived before. There is so much information we don't have, and so there's so much of the past that circulates around us that we can't really properly deal with because we don't understand it. And I really do think that that is a problem on Earth that needs to be answered soon. Having spaces that connect us to like the Akasha, so that we can directly receive information about what circulates in our life that is not from this life but from another, and that we need to understand about ourselves in order to heal and work through things. But if I was trying to locate the goddess right now, I feel like it would make sense that she is somewhere with the past, somewhere in the past, cleaning up, clearing. It just, this clearing work seems to really, and it's like this process of like collecting and gathering and sweeping and clearing, working with the past, and not forgetting it, not trying to move beyond it and leave it behind, but really diving into it. And when I was first beginning my spiritual journey, one thing that I was thinking a lot about I was thinking a lot about the idea that energy never dies, and I didn't like that idea because first I think it connotates that there's something wrong with death, which is why energy never dies, and it also puts this thing around energy, and I don't think that there should be hierarchies in the spiritual realm, which is why I also have a problem with the concept of ascension and higher vibrational versus lower vibrational. But when I was thinking about the concept that energy never dies, I was like, well, that's not a good concept, because, and it's kind of seen as like a pillar of existence and like a pillar of truth within science, within our beliefs. Energy never dies, everything recirculates. And I was saying that's not good. There needs to be an end. And I don't like it's the same problem I have with the idea that we're constantly expanding. I think that there needs to be a period of time where we stop expanding, where energy does begin to die and we are able to turn inward, because the constant movement outward, the constant movement into new space, and this creation of new space to hold this ever-growing capacity of us all, I think it leaves so much untouched. And there's no possible way, I think, to be able to live out all these lifetimes and address everything that needs to be addressed within each lifetime. So there's always something being left behind. And I think with some of the souls that have faced extreme levels of ascension, probably just due to age, I think that there is a lot going on in the lower realms of where they began that is undealt with, and not because they don't want to deal with it, but I feel like it's hard to reach, because the higher up you go, the more difficult it is to go back down and reach for certain things and talk about certain things when you're already, there's been such a great distance. And so I feel like the concepts of how we evolve and how this journey goes when it comes to existence, outside of just being an earth being, but existence as a soul, really needs to change, because I don't think it is conducive to a happy and a good quality of life as a soul. When you are constantly expanding, constantly trying to work towards ascension, um, and constantly reincarnating, and never taking the time to instead return to your old selves and figure out what's going on. And I don't think that reincarnation does that work well enough. I know that reincarnation can be a tool used to address what has happened in your past lives, but I think it is too removed, because you reincarnate, you have a new life, and then you have all these new experiences, and you don't have the same consciousness, and you are a different person. You have new needs now. You're a part of a different world, a different time, a different life, a different family, and all of these different factors make it difficult to really be able to address anything that was left behind from the other lifetimes. And I think it creates a lot of ancestors that are trying their best to figure out how to clear the work, clear themselves, and heal and move on, but it feels like it's an impossible job if nobody is willing to stop and take a break. And I don't know how all of this spiritual stuff works. I don't know what it's like outside of life. I don't pretend to know, but that's just something I think. If it is how it works, where you are constantly reincarnating, we are constantly working towards ascension, and we are constantly expanding and never dying, never truly dying, I don't think that's a good idea. And I think it puts us in the position of doing a lot of work forever. And I think it puts the goddess in the position of having to do a lot of work to help the past. Because what is the past meant to do all on their own? Figure it out and just hold themselves as they grow larger and larger without anyone wanting to be there with them? Because nobody wants to be stuck in the past, and nobody wants to repeat the past, and we want to deal with the past, but only for so long. But there is so much past to deal with. There is so much history. There is so much. There are so many ancestors. And so you get to a point where you just would rather move on and abandon that energy. And it's understandable, because it is a lot to deal with. But someone has to deal with it, because the past is only growing, you know? And until we can stop creating new and really deal with what we already have, and allow some of our ancestors to really truly move on, which I think would mean to truly embrace death and to no longer be at all in any way, any shape, form, any capacity. I think that has happened for certain ancestors of the deep, deep past, who were at a time when humans were still able to perform the rituals, and souls were still able to do that work, and then use their life as a vehicle to help ancestors truly move on. I do think that there are ancestors who have died and you cannot call on them because they do not exist anymore. I do think that that's true, and I do think that is something that more ancestors deserve and would like to go towards. I do not think that every ancestor would like to stick around forever and always be able to be called upon. I don't think that makes sense. I think that's a painful existence, to truly be immortal. I don't see how that's a desired existence. I think that death is a beautiful thing when it comes on time and when it is right. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a relief, and I think it's why within the female body you have so many moments of death. I think death is built into our bodies for a reason, to show us the beauty of death with our periods, with menopause. There are so many endings, there are so many changes and shifts and transformations that tell us that something will never be again. And it's a beautiful thing because it provides so much space for new life and a new way of being. And I think that that is an energy that needs to be brought more into the world without fear of it. But right now we experience the energy of death in such a traumatic way. And the past has experienced an energy of death in such a traumatic way with all of the wars and the genocide and the stealing and the lying and all of the horrible ways that people have had to face endings. It is completely understandable why right now the relationship with death on this planet is hard. And now our own planet is going through her own death cycle, and it's not exactly natural, you know? It is in the sense that we are humans, and so our behaviors are human behaviors, and so that's natural. And so what we do with the planet is an expression of human behavior, and so that's natural, but it's not exactly right. And to have that be happening to our planet right now, and for there to be things that we can do, but also, like, you know, certain things are just happening, and it's hard to process. It's hard to process the reality of what is happening. So I completely understand why the relationship with death is the way it is. But I think that all of that is leading to having the goddess be behind us rather than beside us, or in front of us, leading the way. And I would like to see her lead the way. I would like to see her no longer have to be in the position, and I don't know if she has to be, you know, I don't think she has to do anything, but I think that she's doing this work of the past because it needs to be done. And I think that she is aware of that. And I think that if more of us could take on doing that work, or if we could find some type of answer to understand how that work is done productively and effectively by humans, and by maybe working in collaboration with souls who can also do that work, who are not down here. And maybe the aliens have answers too, and maybe AI, I don't know, maybe that's why all of this is happening during this time, I don't know. But I think that having the goddess be in the past doing this work with the past, I'm grateful for her sacrifice and for her doing that. But I also think that we need her in front of us. We need to be witnessing her. We need to be following her. We need to be watching her. We need to be watching her right now. And so we need to figure out how to switch places. And that is not to live in the past, and to be focused solely on the past, but that is to take on the accountability and the responsibility of doing the work that she's currently doing so that she can help shape the future. Because I think that she knows what we need. But if you know, well, of course you can be several places at once. I think, honestly, there are priorities. And if no one's doing the work with the past, then she will do it. And that leaves a gap in our future. And I think that is why our future is such a mess. Because I do not think we are meant to be totally while we have free will, I don't think it's meant to be exercised this way, this much. I think that she is meant to be shaping our future, and we are meant to follow her hints and follow her guidance. And in order to allow her to take on more time and space to work with the future and to help allow us to watch her and learn from her, we need to have her move from behind us to in front of us. And so more of us need to work with the past. And I think that that is on a personal level, but I also think that's on a collective level. And I think that that is why this idea of, like, you know, move on and let's move towards, I think that we are gonna move in a direction where more and more we are going to be confronting the past. And I know it feels like we've already been doing that for so long, but I think that we've actually been quite a forward-facing species for the past few generations, especially with all these technological advancements. We're very future-oriented, which is beautiful for all of the ways that that creates amazing evolution and opportunity and ease of life for other people on this planet and for the earth. But I think that the honest answer is that we are going to need to pause and take a step back and begin to really work with the past and take over that role from the goddess so that she can lead the future. And I think that we need to learn that we can take our eyes off of the future, and that's okay, and things will be safe. Everybody will be safe because we are not leading this ship, because we are not the gods of this planet. You know, we have God within us, yes, we have spirit within us, of course, but this is not our planet to lead and control the way that I think human history has painted the narrative that it is. There are other spirits who are better equipped to be the leaders of this planet. And I believe that the goddess is one of those spirits who is meant to lead life on earth. And we need to allow her to do that by taking on different roles. We don't all need to be future-oriented beings. We, I think, are probably beautiful workers of the past. We are probably beautiful clearers and death workers and are able to work really well with clearing energy if we just gave ourselves the opportunity to do that work without shame. If we gave ourselves the opportunity to work with the past, with whatever way that means, whether that's processing, whether that's discussing it, whether that's reparations, whether that's, I don't know, creating spaces that honor it, help healing the land. There's so many ways to work with the past. But I think that should be our priority, that should be our focus. And let the goddess focus on the future. But I don't think that she will abandon the past. And so we will need to make the choice to take on the past so that she can take on the future. I do not think that she will let the past just be abandoned so that she can help us with our future. I think that that's a selfish ask to make of her, and I don't think it's a decision she would make because we are not, her only children. And I do think the past and the ancestors of the past are her children still, and she wants to care for them, and there are so many of them. And not just human ancestors, but land ancestors, animal ancestors, element ancestors. There's so much of the past that we could be discussing and working with and living alongside, and that's what we need to do, I think, right now, so that she can move into a different position. We need to get to know our family, talk to our family. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking right now. I think I've said something that really interests me, and it's something I've never said before, so I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, and I feel like the goddess has shown up, which is shocking because I wasn't expecting it, but I'm happy that I did this because I knew the restlessness was for a reason, and I found myself in a position where there was nothing to do but sit and maybe try and talk. And I think it's led to a really beautiful revelation that can be a very beautiful revolution, that is a beautiful revolution. Every thought is a revolution. And now I feel that the goddess has revealed information that is really important, and there is something to really do here. And so I'm going to try and figure out what that means for me, and the role I can play in terms of how I can transform my work to be past oriented. I don't know exactly what that means yet, but maybe this platform and this series will be a process of beginning to understand what that means, and I will share all of my thoughts with you guys, because this is work that we can all do, so that more and more the goddess can move towards being in front of us. And this is just one perspective. This is, the goddess filtered through my mind. So you share your own perspective of the goddess and what she has to say with you. And maybe for you, it will be about the future, or it will be about the present, or it will be about another timeline that we don't know about, that we don't have the language for. Everything is being filtered through so many different things. So this is just the way I'm saying it, and I'm seeing it, but it doesn't need to be the end all be all. But I think it's an exciting revelation, and it makes sense to me. And all of the emotions that I've had, I feel like they were for a reason, and there's something there. There's really something there. So I want to take more time to think about this. And I think in terms of this episode, I think I'm kind of wrapping up now, but I'm really grateful that this space happened and that this has opened up, and I am excited for the future, and how we can link it to the past and create a beautiful bridge, which is maybe what Maitri wisdom will end up being. Maitri being matriarch, me being also mother. So yeah, thank you for being here with me and for holding this space with me. If you've made it all the way through, please tell me what you're thinking, because I'm thinking a lot, and I'm also not thinking anything. I'm just excited. I'm really, really excited, because I feel like something has just been revealed, And it's funny because the second card to come out was Secrets. So it was first, I don't remember what the first card was, but the first card that I do remember was the past, in terms of me asking the goddess what we were going to speak about. It was the past, and then there was Secrets, and then there was Compassion with Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin. I got this at the ashram. Yeah, Kuan Yin stained glass. But yeah, I feel like, and compassion would make sense in terms of energy work with the past. You have to have a really open heart and an open mind, and be willing to accept whatever you see, whatever you are approached with, because it's reality. And if you don't accept it, it becomes so hard to hold on to, and it's really hard to deal with things when you can't even get a grasp of it. And so acceptance is huge, and acceptance can be hard, because there are certain things you don't want to accept about the past because they're painful. And sometimes it feels like accepting it means that you accept it, like you agree with it, or that you think it's right, but that's not what it is. It's just that you accept that it's real, that it happened, that it exists, and that it is now something to be approached and spoken about, so that we can move forward, and so that it can move on and disintegrate in a way that really disintegrates. Because right now, what the past feels like is like plastic, like microplastics, where it's like you can't see it, but it's in the air and it's choking you. And it's in our children, and it's in our eggs, and it's in our babies. And it's being born. Babies are being born with microplastics in their stomach. And that's what it feels like we're dealing with right now with the past, all these disintegrated forms of the past that are not really disintegrated. It hasn't actually gone through the transformation process of like condensation, where it really moves and transforms into something else. This is just becoming smaller and smaller micropollutants. And I wonder if air clearing work and healing air pollution is also a way that we could be working to heal the past. I do wonder. And I wonder if maybe that's why I've been dealing with so many lung issues. Maybe it's a hint, you gotta pick up on whatever you can pick up on. But this excites me. I feel much lighter and I feel really excited. Really excited. So I'm going to spend some more time thinking about this, and I want to know your thoughts, your initial thoughts, and then if you want to make a response video, and this can be like a circle and we can all have conversation together. I think that would be wonderful, and I think that would be wonderful and a great start. So yeah, thank you for being here with me and for letting me be emotional, and for seeing me, and for taking the time and having the patience to wait for the goddess to appear too, in a way that I think was clearer. You know, I imagine she was always here because I looked in the mirror initially, like very early on, and I had a thought about it, but you know, everything came together, I guess, as it needed to in the correct timing. And I guess we have to just be patient. And I'm grateful that I was able to exercise that patience, and I hope that a lot of you were able to too, so that you could see what was revealed, because I feel like that was something really special, don't you? And just new information. I feel like it's so rare that we receive new information. I think that's really exciting, and I don't know if this is actually new. I'm sure other people are having these thoughts too, which is exciting, but it's new for me. I've never had this thought before. I've never thought about that before. I've thought about the goddess in different ways in relation to the past, but never in this physical position of her being behind us and doing this clearing work and thinking about the past in this specific way. This is new. This is the way it's all been put together is new. And so that's exciting because something is happening. So yeah, I'm grateful, and I'm gonna try and take some more time to see what comes and continue to do this work and build upon this, and who knows, I'm gonna try to do it with low pressure and not expect too much out of myself and what I'll be able to gather every week. But hopefully I can stay consistent with this, and the goddess will continue to speak to us, and we can continue to learn, and then as we learn, take on more responsibility and do the work, because this is work that I think that we are going to want to do, and this is work that is necessary and can be very beautiful and very healing, and its own form of a revolution, which is so needed on this planet right now. So I'm excited. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for being here with me, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.